year was 1863. 10 years earlier, the Shah of Persia had banished Baha'u'llah and his family to the city of Baghdad in Iraq. Baha'u'llah was a wise, kind, generous, and filled every heart with love and wonder. He was becoming very popular, and everyone wanted to meet him and learn from him.
He was becoming so popular that the government of Iran, which was a cruel government, was afraid that Baha'u'llah was becoming more popular than the Shah, and that people would want to listen to Baha'u'llah and not the Shah. The government of Iran wanted to bring Baha'u'llah back from Baghdad so that they could put him into the most terrible prison. They wanted to kill him. They tried to get the other governments to kill Baha'u'llah, but didn't succeed. Everyone stood by his side.
The governor of Baghdad admired and loved Baha'u'llah. When he received a message from Iran that Baha'u'llah had to be sent away, he said, "I will not do this. Baha'u'llah has lived here for 10 years and he has never done anything wrong." But this didn't work, and eventually he was forced to tell Baha'u'llah that he had to leave Baghdad forever. When Baha'u'llah's friends and followers heard that he was being forced to leave Baghdad, they were terribly sad. They refused to sleep or eat. They didn't want him to leave. They loved him so much. But Baha'u'llah comforted them and told them that everything would be okay. When the time came to meet the governor, Baha'u'llah went to the mosque to meet him. But the governor, who loved Baha'u'llah, was too ashamed to tell him that he had to leave Baghdad. So the governor sent a messenger to deliver this message instead. The governor also sent a generous amount of money to help Baha'u'llah on his long journey to Turkey. Baha'u'llah took the money, but instead of spending it on himself, he gave it all to the poor.
So many people came to visit him to say goodbye. For each one of his friends in Baghdad, Baha'u'llah wrote a very special letter in his own handwriting. They treasured this very much. Instead of receiving his friends at his home, Baha'u'llah decided to gather everyone in a beautiful island garden across the river from his home. There, it would be quiet and beautiful, with the sun shining and the singing of birds all around. Everyone helped to get the garden ready. The tent was set in the center of the garden for Baha'u'llah, and other tents were arranged throughout the garden. It looked like a little village of tents.
The garden was blooming with bright red roses, tulips, all kinds of colorful flowers, and beautiful green trees. A pool of water stood in the middle of Baha'u'llah's tent. Outside the tent, streams of water flowed in all directions. Everyone tried to make the garden more beautiful than ever before.
On April 22nd, 1863, Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l-Baha left home and set out for the beautiful garden. On his head, Baha'u'llah wore an elaborately adorned hat called a taj. All kinds of people gathered around Baha'u'llah's home because they had heard the news that he would soon be leaving Baghdad. Men, women, young, old, friends, strangers, the poor. Everyone was heartbroken. Many were crying because they had come to love Baha'u'llah and thought they would never see him again. "Don't leave us," they cried.
So many people crowded into the streets and on rooftops that it was difficult for Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l-Baha to walk towards the garden. Finally, they reached the Tigris River. At the river, Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l-Baha got on a small boat that had been waiting for them. Just as they arrived in the garden, Tigris River rose up. It was impossible for the others to cross and reach the garden. Baha'u'llah's family couldn't join him for another 9 days.
Each day he spent in the greatest joy walking along flower-lined paths and amongst the trees.
On the first day of Ridvan, Baha'u'llah made the most important announcement of his life. He said that God had sent him with a message for all the peoples of the world. He said that he had come to make peace in the world, to end all wars, to end hatred, to end fighting, and to bring happiness to all the people and all the countries in the world. It was a message of joy, and everyone's heart was filled with delight. Each day in the garden, before sunrise, gardeners picked up the roses that lay in the pots and gathered them into a pile in the center of Baha'u'llah's tent. This pile grew so tall, visitors drinking their morning coffee could not even see each other across the pile of roses.
Sometimes, in the evenings, nightingales would sing so loudly that it was difficult to hear people talking. Baha'u'llah said that the nightingales were so full of love for the beauty of the roses that they couldn't sleep, and stayed awake singing all night.
On the 9th day, the Tigris River settled down, and Baha'u'llah's family was able to join him in the garden. Once they joined him in the garden, the river overflowed again.
On the 12th day, the flooding ended and everyone was able to cross the river to see Baha'u'llah. On this last day, Baha'u'llah announced that he was leaving Baghdad the next day to begin his journey to Constantinople in Turkey. Baha'u'llah had one last very special visitor. The governor of Baghdad had come to visit Baha'u'llah. He said he was deeply sorry